Kishik Park, Chairman of Study Group 3. Would you like to give us a brief introduction to the principal activities of your study group?
Yes, the Study Group 3 of ITUT, which I'm in charge of currently, its main mandate is to develop some tariff and accounting principles in international telecommunications for the more efficient use and provision of those services. And in my study group, there are many participants who has a lot of concern in their business because our tariff principles or accounting charging principles is closely related to the money making. So currently from 60 countries in the world, we have normally more than 150 participants in our study group meeting. Normally we have meet twice to develop those tariff and accounting principles, as well as some other economic and policy related issues for making and developing some better tariff and accounting principles which will be used in the world. And our study group mandate is a little bit broader than other technical study groups in ITUT because our group is, I think, it's a unique group to deal with tariff and accounting principles under UN agencies. It's a sole group to deal with those kind of some charging methods and tariff methods. In that regard, we have specifically have 4 regional groups. That is for African region and Asia and Oceanian region, Europe and the Mediterranean region, and lastly Latin America and Caribbean region. And one more thing I want to mention regarding the study group 3 of ITUT is this study group deals with a very important matter for some developing countries as well as for underdeveloped, what we call DCCET, developing countries and countries with economies in transition, because altogether in the world they should develop some balanced tariff and accounting principles for the future communications, some efficiency and use of all those good international telecommunication services.
Thank you. And now, would you like to highlight some of the key achievements of Study Group 3?
Study Group 3, as I mentioned, it deals with very sensitive and very important matter for the members of ITU. As I mentioned, all kinds of discussions occurred in Study Group 3, even that is a very minor discussions or very small decision result may affect on their business situation. So all the kind of discussions were very important achieved by Study Group 3, but let me highlight for some very important decisions or working by Study Group 3. The first one is regarding IP telephony, what we call VoIP. Recently, many countries, they are introducing this kind of service of IP telephony, and for IP telephony, we developed some appendixes to D.dot recommendation D.50, and we are still working very hard for facilitating the use of recommendation D.50 and also appendixes to that recommendation developed by our Study Group 3. And second thing I want to emphasize here is some modification of several recommendations, because every day telecommunication services environment has been changing from some fixed network service provision to some mobile network service provision. So we are doing more work on some modification of our current recommendations, which will serve for the changing environment of the mobile service provision. That's the second thing. And also, there was a very important decision by study group 3. It was mobile termination rate, termination charge, or we did extensive work for the mobile termination charging rate, and we just modified the recommendation D.93 last year to facilitate negotiation of some differential settlement rate according to the call termination on the fixed networks or on mobile networks. I think all those are major achievements by study group 3.
Thank you. So what would you consider to be the hot topics or the future direction of your study group?
It's a very difficult question to answer for me. I think in study group 3, firstly, as I mentioned, all the tariff and accounting principles or charging principles should be fair for developing countries as well as developed or underdeveloped countries. In traditional telecommunication services, normally developed countries they paid a lot of money to developing countries for their services. But these days, as service environment and technologies changes, I think developed countries now they are getting some amount of money from underdeveloped countries. But as all we are aware of, developing countries still they need a lot of money to invest for the establishment of networks to provide some new services. So first thing we should tackle in study group 3 will be how to help the developing countries to promote their service provision and also their some balanced communication environment for the world society. That will be very important thing to be done in study group 3. And another thing, today, most of the telecommunication related people, they are saying about NGN, next generation networks. This NGN, also in study group 3, we should some more work, very important work, regarding on how to charge on NGN environment telecommunication services. Traditionally, all the tariff and accounting principles mostly based on some communication time. But NGN charging system should be very different from those traditional principles. I think it mainly based on some other criteria such as quality of services or some special user requirements. In many other technical study groups in ITUT, they are studying some technical requirement to secure interoperability of communications. But in this study group 3, specifically I think we need to develop appropriate tariff and accounting principles for the use of new NGN services and technologies without any problem.
Thank you very much.